Hello. Hey, Greg. Okay. It is another episode of Write Once, Read Many. Oh. Little window. Okay. Alright. So, the audience participation reminder, was talk about a villain with strong thematic ties to media they're in. My example being from this chapter, Konsu, which I will talk about more in the audience participation section. For themes, this one's, surely there's just a better wording for this, but unexpected bad stuff. And then I put a fake quote from Taylor of, first an interview, now this. Yelling at the TV screen. And then, of course, the other classic Parahumans theme of escalation. You kill off one Endbringer, and new ones show up to say, fuck you and your tactics. Yeah, so we went from Behemoth to Konsu, unfortunately. Let's see here. By the way, a fan is going out on the computer, so I'll try not to get too distracted, and let me know if it comes through too much on the audio or something. Fan is just going hard. And I'm hoping it's not coming through to the mic. Anyway, as you can see in the speed draw, which is nearly finished, we're looking at the interview that Taylor does, and it seems that Annex is missing from the lineup here, which I will take to mean that this is right when he stood up to do his powers demonstration. Let's see. Almost finished with all that drawing. I want to switch to the normal art before I start the full chapter review, without having too much dead air. What a feat. Okay. And isn't that nice? The finished version. It's been a while since we've had this many characters like directly in view. Kind of reminds me of the Arc 8 image with all of New Wave on screen. So anyway, see here. The beginning of the chapter, they're in a backstage room before this interview that we see on the nice chapter art here, and several of the members of the Chicago wards are freaking out. This is it's unclear to me exactly how far after the previous chapter it is, but they're making a big splash in the city again, so they're being interviewed, and Taylor sees this as a move that the PRT is making against her to box her in. So she's calling Glenn, like, at the moment of the chapter opening. She briefly speaks to his secretary, James, and then is able to talk directly to Glenn. Glenn gives her some pointers and so forth. Tells her basically, like, keep things moving. It's less important to be like exactly accurate all the time, and more important to not get caught up in things, more or less. And so he kind of sets the idea of how to deal with the conversation to Taylor. And it's funny because I don't know. I think they do handle this interview really well, and Taylor's thinking how much of a terrible trap this is, but I don't know. It was fine. Let's see here. I'm trying to not get too distracted by the fan, but on my end, it's really loud. Let's see here. Yeah, she's been forced into this interview, and then didn't even know beforehand, like, the type of program this is. She's never seen it before, so she doesn't know what to expect in terms of, like, host personalities. It's called Mornings with OJ and Coffee, as implied by the artwork here. I'm sure that shows like this exist, but I have never watched such a thing. The moments that I've caught of morning TV show in my life have been pretty vapid in the way that these folks are, so this does ring true to me, but boy, who watches this stuff, like Taylor says. And they all have sort of, the hosts have a very, like, vapid way of dealing with the interviewees, the Chicago wards. Oh, also, forgot to mention, before they're getting out on stage, PA kind of pushes them in the back to get them out there, and Taylor is feeling talked down to. It's typical Taylor stuff. She's always saying, "I don't get no respect." She has the same attitude as Rodney Dangerfield, for sure. But apparently this show is going to be in front of millions of people, which is very unnerving to Taylor. But I agree that this is probably not gonna... This is gonna be pretty minor in the grand scheme of things, even if she's getting a lot of stage fright. I guess Glenn's biggest advice is for her to be more honest with her, like, the way she is as a teenager, and be less... He's saying act normal, don't be a freak, which is difficult advice for Taylor to follow. But with the whole team there, she can divert at least some of the time and have them talk, so that's good. And, oh, I forgot to mention, this interview is going to be a pre-taped interview, so they're worried that no matter what Taylor does, it could be clipped together in weird ways. So they need to be careful of wording and such from that angle. Let's see here. Boop, boop, boop. So, sort of skipping forward. They have some nice team banter, but skipping forward to when they are on stage. You know, some music plays, they start bantering a little bit about how the last time they were here was, you know, a different team lineup. Campanile was still in the mix, so that probably would have been at the same time that, like, Raymancer was on the team. They don't mention that Raymancer's dead. Trying to keep things light and airy. And then they talk about their updated costumes, how Taylor's had time to refit them all. They start talking about how one of the hosts, Joe, is afraid of insects / arthropods. Whatever you call crabs. She says, you know, the classic, "I don't dislike you, Weaver. It's bugs I don't like. I just hate your power and your personality, Weaver. Don't worry." And then let's see. Yeah, they start asking, you know, they start honing in on Weaver early on. They're asking, like, "Oh, you guys dropped off the radar." And then Tecton sort of jumps in. They're talking about how, you know, he's starting off the play of like, oh, we're teenagers, we live normal lives, we're not just capes, and then Wanton undercuts him a bit. But then Tecton keeps sort of bringing them back on message when they're asking what Wanton meant that Taylor's always taking like that she's not like a normal teen and whatever, she doesn't have her own hobbies. Then Tecton reminds everyone that Weaver's stuck on the base and stuff. She's on house arrest, so she's limited in her life. But this only allows the hosts to go back to this allows Coffee, one of the hosts, to go back to asking her about when she was a villain, and asking her about being opposed to Dragon Defiant, and she brings up Clock Blocker, and then she sort of she non-answers her way out of why she was there, but then she's like, she sort of says at that time in her life she wanted to focus on taking care of the city. O asks a question that is a classic. You were a criminal overlord. How were you even qualified for that? So you need a job interview for a criminal overlord. Taylor starts trying to explain herself in a really broad way that doesn't go into the nitty-gritty, that I do think comes off better than like if she was to try and really explain herself. And she thinks to herself this sentence here, which I think is or this little paragraph. I'd avoided mentioning I was an undercover aspiring hero when I'd started out. That had never worked out for me and only complicated things. So Taylor has become better at doing her own PR. And then somebody asks her about Alexandria in the video. She gives an answer that would be confusing to me as a member of the public, not as a reader of the book. It's not her. I'm not happy, obviously, to see her up there. It's an ugly reminder of what happened. But to have another person fighting the Endbringers, I'm okay with that part of it. So she says that, like, I would assume that people don't know it's Pretender. Like, what would people be meant to think when she says it's not her? But, like, all of them talk about Alexandria, present tense, as still being dead, but also being up there fighting. If I were a host, I would have followed up on that question. Anyway, but yeah, so, let's see. It's sort of hard to, like, not beat by beat talk about every little bit of this conversation, but they get asked a few more vapid questions, like, are you excited? From Joe, which is a non-joking question to the future of how crazy things have been going, like, is a crazy question to ask, but it is a completely earnest question. Are you excited? And Tecton, of course, being the staying on message, says, I'm really excited. And Taylor just can't maintain kayfabe. She sees Tecton say that he's really excited, and she's like, was he deluded? But no, it's clear that he's just giving a proper interview answer. Then they ask about if they can after they talk a bit a bit more. And they compliment Weaver, say she kept him alive in the behemoth fight. They want a little powers demonstration. Oh no, I'm skipping ahead again. No, for this part, they're talking about how well everybody did in New Delhi. Cuff is very anxious and has stage fright because, aside from anything else, she keeps making noises with her costume, being very loud. They briefly ask her about her injury. They lie that it's healed. Always got to pretend you're fighting at full strength, etc. Unless you're pretending you're not fighting at full strength when you are fighting at full strength, then anyway, you always got to keep the mind games going. Cuff gets roasted for being a beta by Wanton. And then, Tecton compliments Cuff, and Taylor cruelly thinks how she would not give the same compliment to Cuff. Then they sort of, Cuff talks for the first time and is talking about how some of being a hero is overwhelming because they have to do so much, keep up on so much information, and train so much. And then she accidentally lets slip that they might run into, like, enemy capes. And then the hosts are like, oh, I hope you're not getting into serious fights. And then this is when Cuff realizes she fucked up and kind of put her foot in it, and then Tecton swoops in as always. He's like, fights happen. We're actively trying to avoid direct confrontation. And then Taylor thinks about how that's several lies of omission. He brings up that they might be fighting a stronger threat when they go out with the Protectorate capes, which lets Annex sort of pivot off that, and he's like talking about how he really likes going out on patrol with Protectorate members, how the Chicago PRT Protectorate wards, like all that branch is more like welcoming and accepts more questions and stuff. So, they're putting up a good front. Apparently Campanile had been on some program and had talked about Golem, so the focus shifts to Golem. Golem's all like timid and intimidated at first, and then when he's being timid, Taylor jumps in to be like, Golem is legit. He's really cool. And then she names several other team members, and Wanton's like, it sounds like everyone's awesome but me. And then one of the hosts, Joe, kindly says, I think you're awesome. And then everyone's happy with that, which I think is a funny moment, because Taylor does not respect Joe at all, or any of the hosts. And then, Taylor just goes on gushing praise on Golem. Everybody's giving Golem all these high expectations to live up to, and Golem's like, oh no, there was already so much pressure, and now there's even more pressure. I do find it funny how, like, he's vacillating between, like, needing big ups from people to, like, feel ready for stuff, and also being like, the expectations are mounting. They get asked if there's anything more than friendship between people. And then Golem's like, not me and Weaver. Don't even ask about that. We're friends. And then Wanton, being the regent of the group, does bring up that Taylor had a thing with Gru, and then And then she gets annoyed and like just outwardly says, and this is the third time you've turned the conversation awkwardly back to me. That's like rough. It gets to a point where she like kind of has to say that and also is saying it at all. But then Wanton realizes like, oh no. And then the hosts take the moment to ask about it. A tender moment on the battlefield. I think a lot of people were surprised. And then Taylor reflects on, like, if there's anything that I still will get revenge upon Glenn for, it's the part of the video where Gru and Me's tender moment was revealed. You know, she may be allies with Glenn, but Glenn will still see the... you know, in her deep heart, she has lingering resentment for Glenn. Let's see here. Although it's not like she doesn't understand. She says necessary on a level, but still scummy. Also thinking about the Rachel section is when she says the but still scummy. Because she's always thinking about that leaked video and how everything is could make her friends look bad. But only her Undersiders friends, not these Chicago wards who, at this point in the story, she's already been with the Chicago wards longer than she's been with the Undersiders. And when Glenn was talking earlier in the chapter, she was like, I don't know if I have any fun anecdotes to share about these guys. It's very sad. Anyway, so we're moving past Taylor's reflections upon the video being leaked, and they're asking Taylor why she had brought up others being naturally, or not why, but the fact that she had brought up others naturally being heroic, and asking if she feels that way about herself. Taylor says that she's a little bit heroic and a little bit villainous. And this is when the Coffee, who has been the most contentious host to Weaver, it goes, hold on. You think you were heroic before you switched sides? By all accounts, you killed Alexandria and a law enforcement official. You were quoted as talking to school children about huge quantities of money you earned from criminal activities. And this is when Taylor's like, this is the sneak attack that I've been waiting for. And then Grace basically says some of the good stuff she does. Joe is like, that sounds impressive. And then, but then also sort of turns it around. If that's a little heroic, then I wonder what being a little villain nowadays is like. And then Taylor's not sure what to say to that at first, and then she goes and says that she'll let her actions speak for themselves. She's able to move past the fact that they're ganging up on her very well, because it could easily have set off her, oh no, they're bullying me, senses, which would be, you know, if she got all flustered by that, she wouldn't be able to handle this, but she doesn't get flustered. She just moves on past it. And so Tecton is, as always, on message saying, yeah, I fully agree. We need to let Weaver's actions speak for themselves. We're going to build up a track record showing that she's got reliability as a hero. The hosts actually take this in stride, let them move on. Like, they don't get harped on any further. I actually feel like their, like, air quotes, attack was not that bad. Like, they went in at her a couple times near the end of the interview, and then they accepted Tecton's explanation and moved on. Because they're now saying, does anybody have a powers demonstration? Annex, at this point, is going to take center stage. I like this. We've got a crash test dummy, a beat-up car. They're like clearly going to list several things, but then Annex is, he's like, I can do something with the car. Maybe we could remodel the exterior. Maybe the audience could name a car. What should we make? And I think that this would have been great fun. But instead, right as one of the hosts really wants to give an answer and say what car, then everyone's cell phones go off at the same time, and they get the message, stand by, disturbance recorded, possible class S threat. And they're all worried, murmurs are going around, including the audience, and then Tecton points out that this is the text they got for the Echidna situation, so it might not be a new Endbringer, but then they got another text. Chicago wards are to remain at current location. Transportation en route. Will deploy to Studio B parking lot for quick pickup. And, also this, a possible emergency has come up elsewhere in the world. If this blows over in the next few minutes, we'll edit out anything problematic and resume the show. For now, remain calm while we prepare for an emergency broadcast from the news team upstairs. There is no danger here. And, yes, we get cell phone footage of Japan, and there is a new Endbringer somewhere between the height of like Leviathan and Behemoth, probably. It is a weird sphere in the middle, gangly arms and legs thingy, catfish face. Apparently it's got like thin leaves coming off it, like filigreed all over. Very broad physique. It says a Buddha in physique. But yes, strange looking dude, as all of the Endbringers are. Let's see here. He has several like circular thingies that swirl around him that are basically just like time speed up zones where everything inside experiences like a massively sped up time frame. Unclear how far, but after it leaves a spot that had a person, that person is skeletonized. And some buildings are crashing to the ground because it's weathering the structure so quickly. So, could be quite fast, although skeletons do go away after a while. So, I don't know. Taylor can tell that he's not like Behemoth and Leviathan in terms of like both of them. What she says is he's not a fighter, but both of them are the type to run up to you and punch you. This dude seems to sort of float around and let the circles do the talking. And so, there are no heroes or anyone on the scene because Japan doesn't have an organized hero force, so people are, like, trying to show up and whatever, but no one's there yet. All of the wards are freaking out. They're having, like, very strong reactions, of course, as you would expect. Let's see here. The Wanton is the person to say this, and then Grace echoes it, and then Taylor thinks about it. They express the idea that this new Endbringer, Khonsu, that his power is like an expression of what the heroes did to Behemoth, where they used a barrier, then they used a time power to skeletonize him. And surface level, technically correct. It is very thematically similar visually, iconographically, so they are right in that way. The powers don't really operate in a similar manner, but perhaps they're trying to evoke a, like, retribution. What you did to one Endbringer, we will do to all these humans, kind of thing. Let's see here. The he appears to be able to move these circles that are like rotating around him in and out of like distance from him and rotate them around him, and when he moves they move with him. So when he steps forward and backward, etc., it sort of catches stuff very quickly. You know, when an Endbringer takes one step, that's like someone running for several seconds because of how gigantic they are. Taylor's saying movers will be important, maybe shakers too, and saying different stuff, and several of her teammates are like unable to take part in the conversation. Cuff is hugging Grace, etc. And while Grace has tears on her face like Cuff, she's much more gritty than Cuff. Let's see here. Taylor, in a moment of solidarity we would rarely see, reaches out her hands in each to each Cuff and Golem, the ones who seem to be having the hardest time. And she thinks to herself how now is a moment for solidarity, support, morale, and so forth. So, yeah. Very... I guess, while Taylor has stayed the same in many ways, this time skip from when she was with the Undersiders to now, she has clearly changed her outlook on what her role is, especially with probably talking to Jessica 2 chapters ago, when Jessica was able to convince her that she doesn't need to physically be present at every fight, and that she can actually do more long-term good sometimes by like focusing on her teammates, etc., rather than how she can get herself to a battlefield. Let's see here. As Endbringers always do, Khonsu does show several tricks up his sleeve. He disappears a circle, then reappears a new one somewhere else, and this, you know, is able to slurp up several capes right away. Taylor thinks to herself at one point how the opening of every new Endbringer is basically just like losing tons and tons of forces, learning their capabilities. There's it says ship is outside if you want it. Chicago wards, attendance not mandatory. Temp code name is Khonsu. That's the new text message they get, and Cuff says that she's not going to go to the fight. Taylor accepts this. Cuff asks if she's going, and Taylor, of course, nods. Like, duh, Dodoy, I gotta go. But she's nice about it. She doesn't even try to be like, you've gotta go, Cuff. She's being chill. I know, a shock. Taylor being chill. Anyway, they look at the video again, watch some people getting super killed by the time circles, right after, resolutely nodding that she's going. And then sort of contemplating the Endbringer again. And then they get inside the dragon craft, and then Tecton tries to have the ship take off, but the ship does not take off. When in the moments between them, having seen the previous monitor and walking into the craft and seeing the next monitor, Konsu's no longer on the broadcast feed. There's all the damaged, cityscape and all the people who have been killed that the camera's looking over, but Konsu's not there. And it turns out that Konsu can teleport. So he has teleported to Cape Verde, which is, well, one would say not in Japan. And so all the people who were spending all that time flying to Japan are now like flinging themselves around the world to get to Cape Verde instead. Some of them do move remarkably fast, like Eidolon and Legend and Pretender as Alexandria. So they're actually able to mobilize fight to fight. But, it takes them on the order of minutes to get there anyway. So the Endbringer is uncontested until he's located and everybody starts flying toward him. So he has time to heal. And they realize that because of the Dragon Craft, however fast they may be, are not realistically fast enough to show up to the battlefield and fight in time for it to matter. They put them on standby and they don't send them out. And then, they're still watching on the screen as Konsu fights Legend and Eidolon. And then, Taylor's just examining him to understand his behavior and fighting style and stuff. We get some descriptions of him moving around and fighting. And then, after, however long, whenever he starts to have too many forces against him, he finally, it says here, then he disappeared in a massive, tightly contained explosion. Trucks and sections of fence were thrown into the air by the movement. And then they get the text message, cannot deploy until we have a way to pin him down. Stand by until further notice. And Taylor doesn't take well to this. This moment does remind me of Wizard People, Dear Reader, the Quidditch match, when Harry just starts yelling, fuck! Fucking shit! She yells, fuck! Fuck it! And then she kicks her laptop when it's on the floor, she shoves it to the floor, then kicks it, and kicks it out of the craft, out into the street. So, yeah. The other wards are silent about this. They don't talk, they don't bring up ideas, they're just kind of like in shock. and none of them had spoken aloud the thing that I had sort of been wondering about during the Seamerg attack. That's what I was looking into, the timing between attacks. And it was hard with the data points to really see the exact pattern or whatever. But Taylor says they'd never attacked this close together in the 9 years that the three of them had been going. Even if we found a way to beat this Khonsu, to mount a defense and stop him from picking us apart, settlement by settlement, darker possibilities loomed. 2 attacks, 2 months apart. Had their schedule changed? Would the next attack come in a mere 2 months? Or would it be more unpredictable than that? No, I thought, with a dawning horror. No, it was worse than that. The Endbringer's schedule of attack had always depended on the number of Endbringers in the rotation. If they were keeping to their usual rules, it promised a 5th waiting in the wings. So yeah, that's crazy stuff. So now we think that there's perhaps 5 of them. And that's where the chapter ends. Very, very suspenseful. Don't know what to do about Khonsu. Don't know what to do about the future. Everything's looking bleak. Maybe this is the grim slide into the end of the world. Greg says, classic Hydra stuff. Cut off one Endbringer, 2 more sprout in its place. Yep, exactly. I used to joke about the Marvel universe when I used to read their comics back in the day, that if there were 3 characters left in the Marvel universe and one of them was Hydra, and the other 2 killed the Hydra guy, the last 2 humans left would become Hydra members. Because in the Marvel universe, even if you kill hundreds and hundreds of Hydra guys, no matter what, their ranks just expand. Clearly, the heroes aren't doing too well. But yes, these goddamn Endbringers. You spend all this time to kill Behemoth, and what does it even matter? Khonsu shows up. I really like this chapter, yet again, like, nothing but hits in this section of the story. I like these one-off characters. We'll never see these news hosts again, but they're just really funny side characters. Non-parahumans can be really good, really great in Wildbow stories. You know, I think that there was, like, fun back and forth. I like how they had to, like, lie by omission a whole bunch and, like, spin things the whole time. So, like, the double talk and stuff is all fun in this chapter. Khonsu, cool design. I like the idea for the new Endbringer. Like, I feel like every Endbringer is good at fighting different types of capes, kind of. So, like, Khonsu is just this whole new thing where, like, oh, you might be unable to be physically damaged by someone like Leviathan hitting you, but can you survive starving for several months? And the answer for most people is no, actually. Some parahumans, it's fine. You know, I just realized if Khonsu trapped Purity in a time portal, she would die if it was nighttime, but she would live if it was daytime. That's crazy stuff. Parahumans. Let's see here. Anyway, moving on to arc stuff. This is like the pivotal point. Khonsu shows up. He's been cooking. He's been in the works. And he's here. And I think that Konsu, being this like time speed up guy, directly represents the like time skip nature of this portion of the book. It almost sounds too literal to be true, but it's all right there. I don't know, and it would not be the first time that Wildbow tries to like enact like an aspect of writing into being a character. Like, I feel like Tattletale is like the embodiment of exposition. Imp is like the embodiment of like the portions of the story that are left off screen, that are left unsaid, or like the forgotten hidden things. And I know that there are people who have like pieced together a lot of different things like that, but those are just the ones that I can think of off the top of my head, along with, I think, the like second most obvious one after Tattletale, Konsu, our boy, the Time Endbringer. I was gonna say Time Guy, but he's like not really. Konsu's not like a person exactly. I don't know. There is a point at which we sort of vaguely see from the Seamerg's perspective, and the Seamerg thinks about how the other Endbringers think, and the Seamerg seems the most person-like, although very evil, of the Endbringers, and yet still very far away from having like a full... I don't know, they're like really abstract creeps from, you know, other dimensions or parallel reality. They're like projections into our world. Anyway, so yeah, arc stuff. I guess the only other thing, this is not just a pivotal point in the arc, but it's a pivotal point in the overall story, showing that like they're not gonna just easily make gains and like slowly bring down one Endbringer at a time, and then like they've done it, they've saved the world by like this attrition against them. It's just not gonna be that easy. And I guess it's like a pivot point in like, there are some capes who this is going to be like devastating to them and like harder for them to go on, like Cuff. And there are some people like Taylor who like just are so fanatical and dug in that they're not... I mean, she's obviously emotionally devastated, but she's wired for this fight in a way that like Cuff was like, I'm staying home. Anyway, we can move on from that to talking about the characters. Brief Glenn portion. He's very similar to his normal thing. He's always sort of like, literally, even when he's telling Taylor not to be a strategist, he's, you know, they're strategizing together. He's always thinking of the game plan. He's always thinking of, well, he's a PR guy, so he's always thinking of PR. But you know, moving forward towards their goals, not just like looking good for a moment or for no reason. They're moving forward with purpose. And Brief James mentioned, I think that this is the only time we see this guy. It's fun that Glenn has like a peppy secretary. Mr. Chambers was just talking about you. Yeah, that's I don't know. These little side guys always add so much life to the world. OJ and Coffee, I mean, they have sort of three different They're three different prongs of a trident that take a poke at Taylor, but only a brief poke. I like how their little personalities bounce off each other. I could imagine them doing various interviews that are all very surface level. Nothing interesting gets asked. Maybe you could even clip around to other similar shows, and they would be asking identical questions to the same guest on a different day. No guest would ever come on to this show and say, that's such an insightful question. But they give the people what they want. I guess I don't have too much to say about them, other than what I already have said. So, next we've got, we'll go with Wanton. His personality lives up to his power. He's like sort of a storm of chaos in a way. He is, annoying Taylor with his antics, but that's fine. He's the regent of the group. He'll get a slight pass for not being able to control his destructive instincts. We're giving him a character pass. If I was actually in his group, I'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with you, dude? Like Taylor. Cuff, not very interview savvy, very nervous, the most affected by the new Endbringer. We of course know in her backstory that her parents were killed by an Endbringer, when she was a child, and despite previously promising herself that she'd show up to Endbringer fights, I think being in the Behemoth fight made her sort of realize that, maybe either she feels that she's fulfilled that promise to her younger self, or that, like, it's just not what she thought it would be, and she's changed her mind on feeling like she needs to fulfill that, I guess. But either way, she cannot go on the airship. I like Cuff, despite the fact that she's a beta, but I'll tell you what, if Vic was here, this would be only further evidence of Cuff's status. Golem gets praise gushed on him previously from Protectorate members and now from like Taylor and stuff, and he's trying to sort of be like, I will do my best to live up to everyone's expectations. Let's see here. We'll go with Grace next. Grace is very good in the interview, I think. She is able to sort of use her status as a longer term team member and hero to be like to stick up for Taylor in a way that will maybe resonate with other people that it wouldn't have. Annex, he is, he's like almost Tecton level of staying on message and doing his, doing what they're setting out to do. And then he's also, ready to do the powers demonstration and stuff. And he's having a good time. Or at least, presenting that way. Tecton is like always on the ball. He is the main person doing the talking aside from Taylor, and he's just really competent in this interview. He's really good at this side of heroing. Yeah. I don't have any big thoughts on most of their reactions when the Endbringer shows up. They're all like concerned, and several of them are like trying to think through how they'll deal with it initially before the teleport happens, etc. But I think aside from Cuff's reaction of just being like completely devastated, the rest of their reactions show like like they're serious capes in the same way that Taylor is. Like, however much they pretend on air that being a cape isn't their main thing in life, it kind of clearly is. Taylor, she was so worried about this interview and stuff, but I thought she did fine. I think that the, like, worst, it's like, she kind of comes off as a weirdo, but, like, she is a weirdo. Yeah. The kind of people who were going to question Taylor before are still going to question Taylor. The kind of people who were going to give her a pass and let her rock as a hero are still going to do that same thing. So I don't really think this interview was, it was just a slight bump on the road. As for the Endbringer thing, for that portion of the chapter, Taylor is, of course, ready to fully Taylor. She is, like, fully trying to, like, examine the capabilities of Konsu. She's, in my opinion, making all the right moves in terms of, like, thinking ahead, trying to get into the fight quickly, like, you know, trying to speculate about the new Endbringer schedule. She's just being classic Taylor. She's in go mode. I do like that she specifically takes the time to think about how she needs to support her team. Even though she's gonna fly to the fight if she can, she, like, holds hands with Cuff and Golem, and she doesn't, like, try to give Cuff any shit, and she's, like, being chill about stuff, to the degree that she can. I mean, she flips out when they can't get to the fight because it kind of boils over and whatever, but I think for Taylor, crushing a laptop is a bit of a minor lash out. I mean, she usually puts bugs in him, regardless of who the M is. Yeah. Yes, we know from the previous Endbringer attack 2 chapters ago that Taylor feels very unsettled and anxious by the idea that she can't get herself physically into the fight and be part of it. So while she does have these new ideas that she needs to support her teammates, etc., we still know that this is going to be really difficult for her, because that's kind of like, you know, her thing. If she's left to her own devices, or if she's left with her own thoughts, she starts getting real anxious. If she can go do a thing, she feels a lot more comfortable. She is a teen of action. I was gonna say she's a woman of action, but she's really more of a child soldier than a woman. So, yep. Yeah, let's move on from characters to powers, knowledge, and world building. I would say, world building wise, this TV show is great. We learn that they still have a bunch of, like, nonsense programs like this in the future. Well, the parahumans future, that, you know, is obviously like an alternate timeline. Humanity will always find a way to annoy Taylor with their TV programming. That's what we've learned in this chapter. No, it's good to, like, see, you know, because we've heard about Capes doing interviews. We've heard about Capes going on TV shows, like Weld especially, but, you know, this is the first time we get to see it. You know, and we could have imagined this for ourselves, but they're able to do a lot with the interpersonal characterness. there's the good excuse that it's like slightly a PRT trap for Taylor to put her foot in her mouth. We get the timing of the Konsu reveal. So, yeah, just this setting of the TV show does a lot all at once and allows for exposition to not feel like exposition. Kind of in similar ways to when Taylor would watch the news in Arc 7, when they're sort of hiding out away from the members of Empire 88 who are attacking the docks, and then they see the news footage of what's going on. That's kind of what it feels like, where the story is able to push forward and it doesn't feel forced or weird. People aren't just telling us things, even if they kind of are. I know. Other things. I like that they take the time to think about the fact that this is like a pre-taped interview, not a live interview. Despite the live audience. Because that can... I bet that could throw some people off if they just don't think about that. You know, they might change the footage to make it seem like Fred thinks Coolsville sucks. So they don't want Weaver to say anything that would make people think she thinks Coolsville sucks. And then I guess that's all I have to say about the news studio. But then, of course, Powers, Knowledge, and World Building. We hear that... Oh, I forgot to say, this is sort of a crossover between this and the character section. Cuff is still injured from the Behemoth fight, and it's been 8 months. Her burn has not healed. And they're lying to the public about that. So I briefly mentioned that they were... that they lied about Cuff having healed up during the chapter, but I think Cuff is just very shaken overall in her life, and having permanent injuries is not helping the matter. Yeah, Konsu, and the increased schedule, just crazy stuff. I did want to talk about his design. I'm just going to read part of it. Snarl. Yeah, this is where it's, it stood somewhere between Leviathan and Behemoth in height. If I ballparked the number of stories in the adjacent buildings, I waited patiently for the view to clear, revealing more details. This wording is very funny to me, but I pegged him as a he before I saw too much else. Classic Taylor, pegging him. He was broad, a Buddha in physique, if more feral in appearance. He was as black as night, with something white or silver giving definition around the edges of his various features. He didn't wear clothes, but he had features somewhere between leaves and fins, with elaborate designs at the edges, curling away from elbows, his wrists, his fingers, and around his legs. It made his fingers and toes into claws, and left dangerous-looking blades elsewhere. His face was a permanent snarl, frozen in place, his teeth silvery white behind the ebon lips. Tendrils, like whiskers of a catfish, marked the corners of his mouth. So, yeah. Oh, I guess here's another, all across the exterior of his body there were gaps, like the gills of a fish, and that brilliant white or silver glimmered from beneath, a stark contrast to the absolute black that marked the rest of him. It made me think of a tiger, and at the center of it all, quite literally, there was a perfect sphere of that same material, a marble or crystal ball that his body perched on the upper half, and his legs attached to the lower half. Yeah, it says a little lower that he almost waddled. He floated as though he were walking on the moon. So yeah, he's a bit derpy. He's slow moving. If this guy didn't have a time power thingy, he would probably be the least effective Endbringer. But he does have a time power thingy. But like, yeah, he just seems like kind of silly. He like they'll talk about it when Eidolon punches him at one point. He like floats backward with the hit, and it just sort of sounds like when people hit him and stuff, he just kind of goes with it, goes with the flow, like it's the flow of time. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like a really cool idea for like a hard to kill Endbringer. Is like he can teleport around. He can use his time thing to like fight different types of capes that weren't necessarily vulnerable to the other Endbringers. Only super mobile capes are gonna get to fight him in the first place, so he doesn't have to put up with all the like types of offense that the capes have to offer. The powers are just so creative in this. I know that everyone always says that shit, but it remains true. He also seems like a boss in a shooter, like a Toho game. One of them bullet hells. Don't get hit by the big spinny circles. Yeah, I guess I don't have that much more to say about the world building, etc. We will learn more about future possible other Endbringers in future chapters. Oh no, they just keep sprouting up. I did look. I was just doing a find command, like a Control F on the chapter to find something, and ended up in the comment section for a second and read this comment by Sylvis. No, I must kill the Endbringers. The radio said, no, Weaver, you are the Endbringers. And then Skitter was a S-class threat. Incredible stuff. I think that was written on the day the chapter was released. And then an hour later, someone said as a reply, so the S in S-class stands for Skitter, eh? Now it all makes sense. That was from user Sean Morgan. But yes, I thought there was some funny back and forth in the comments. The comments, it can be insightful, it can be funny, it can be cringe-inducing. It's always a real mixed bag down there. I wouldn't recommend reading through the comments too often, but if you can drag yourself down there occasionally, it can be a laugh. So let's just go to the audience participation question. Talk about a villain with strong thematic ties to media they're in. Example for this section is, of course, Khonsu fitting well. The answers that we got... so from the group, first Vic said, John from the Locked Tomb, because, spoilers, long story short, John made their society so his personality and abilities are incredibly intertwined with the world. Yeah, Locked Tomb, which is like Gideon the Ninth, Harrow the Ninth, etc., is what is being referred to. Very good sci-fi series. I believe we've talked about it on previous episodes. And then Discord user Malek wrote, the villain of Cure, 1997, is a hypnotist. In the movie or in a movie full of long, gradually engulfing shots, the film suggests that his victims may have all acted the way they did because they saw the same movie, engaging with the idea of the film itself as a hypnotizing force on an audience. Oh, that's cool. That's exactly the kind of thing I was talking about. I'm going to give that answer a worm reaction emoji. Worm. And then I got this vague-ass answer. I did ask my friend who's not into worm about the question in a general sense, and I got this vague-ass answer. A lot of movies that have the villain in the leading role have the character and the themes intertwined, which makes sense. My answer fits that exact thing that we got about the villain as the protagonist, because I picked Patrick Bateman, both protagonist and villain. There's a hollowness to everything about him. It seems like, aside from the murder, all of his interests are a facade that he's holding up for himself that happens to, like, satisfy others. Commonly cited examples being when he talks about music, it's always direct quotes from, like, newspaper reviews or whatever of the music he thinks he should like. And his character is like a personification of the yuppie working in a finance job in the 80s with this, like, hollow life that, as far as I know, the book as well as the movie are both about. I've been told that the book is more explicit about its themes, but I think that the movie is obvious enough, but people still don't, like, necessarily understand it, and they're just like, Patrick Bateman is awesome. And that's why I also included answer Peter Lowe, the Nick Cage character from Vampire's Kiss, who is essentially Nick Cage's version of Patrick Bateman. Vampire's Kiss is actually from 11 years previously, but, like, is a very, very similar movie to American Psycho. Peter Lowe, in my mind, highlights the silliness of someone like Patrick Bateman, because the Peter Lowe character is less how a finance bro would, like, see themselves, and more the way that I think Patrick Bateman would come off to other people in the real world. Even though one of the themes of, like, I think of American Psycho is being insulated by power, etc., I think that at a certain point you would just end up in the Peter Lowe territory where everyone's like, this guy's a real freak. Like, he is doing a whole American Psycho plot, but he just convinces himself that he has turned into a vampire, but then starts doing real murders in this vampire imagination. Vampire's Kiss is a great movie. Anyway. I don't have any other villains off the top of my mind that really embody the themes of the story. I have been told that Anton Chigurh is like this in No Country for Old Men, but I have not read that book, so it's hard for me to say. Anyway, I'm sure that tons of people can think of tons of answers of characters, villains, etc., who have strong thematic ties to either the section of the work they're in or the work as a whole. And my 25.5 question, moving on, is going to be, which character are you most aligned with from the council meeting scene? There are obviously people with wildly differing views of what they could, should, and would do about this whole clone suit situation that they don't know how to deal with. But I want to know a little bit about your own feelings. All right. with that question posted, I'm going to start the old intro outro music, the wonderfully upbeat song Crushed. Thank you, Greg, who says cheers for the stream. So this is yet another chapter with Crushed by ScarlettXOX as the music. You can find her work at twitch.tv/Scarlett_Rogue. You can find our Discord server link as well as the other links in the channel description as well as the stream description. The author of the work being discussed can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/Wildbow. The full text of the work is available for free online at parahumans.wordpress.com. There is also a fan-made audiobook of the entire work at audioworm.rain-online.org. And, let the rest of this good old song play out.